Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 27th week of the year. We have officially passed the halfway point of tracking our local shifting real estate market here in South Jersey, Burlington, Camden, and Gloucester counties. As we know and as we've done, you've had half a year already, you should know the gist. But we had some unusual statistics pop up this week, ones that we don't normally see peak. And I wanted to cover two basic criteria at the moment: price reductions and then the expired, withdrawn, and canceled. Okay. Just as a little bit of leading into that, the thing that I'm seeing here a little bit, prices have come down slightly off of our $345,000 median price point that we had 2 weeks ago, down to 333. So we had a little bit of just kind of a quick jump up and then a quick jump down. And that makes sense because, again, that middle of June, the school sales, we had listings, we had kind of some buyers that had been waiting. So that point got a little fervor, a little contentious. They had a little bit more activity than we were used to. And that's kind of come just down off the plane a little bit. So as we move into kind of the normal summer. So we did see our new listings actually went down quite a bit this kind of last week of June, first week of July. And why did we see that? We saw the same thing during the Super Bowl week. We saw the same thing during some of those major holidays. It's because of a holiday, right? We had the 4th of July. There weren't as many people who wanted to list their home this past week. So it wasn't a big surprise that we saw new listings coming down. I'm not all that concerned about that. We did see our closed units went over 400 though. So that I don't like to see, right? We don't like to see our new actives at 268 and our closed at 400. Again, that's 140 listings that have come off the market that were not replenished, right? So we don't love to see that. Now, the two that I did see for today that were a little unusual, let's start with the expired, withdrawn, or canceled. Now, the past couple weeks that have been 81, 66, 67, 60, and then we jumped all the way to 117. Well, why is that? Why did we jump to that? Well, think about it. We just passed what? The halfway point of the year. When you list your home, a lot of people like round numbers, and a lot of people will list on the first of the year, second of the year, right? Something like that. And most of the time they will set a 6-month listing agreement. And so we have come to the conclusion. So a number of those units that did not sell that have since expired, and expired was almost 90 of that 117. So the expired was way more than the withdrawn or canceled. So that took up almost the lion's share of it. And we can see, and I'm going to just make this graph a little bit bigger for anybody who is watching on screen at the moment, but I'll kind of narrate and explain for anybody who's not. You can see here, week one, the start of the year, we had a ton of expired listings because a lot of people just canceled once the start of the year came, and that is. But then you can see almost every kind of start of the month, you have a spike, 3 weeks in between, spike, 3 weeks in between, spike, 3 weeks in between, spike, right? So you see that basically at the start of every month. Not every listing agreement is signed for 6 months. A lot of them are 30 days at a time, maybe only 90 days at a time. It generally falls under these kind of 30, 60, 90-day chunks, and a lot of people do end up doing it kind of around the first or the end of the month. So not surprising for us to see that number jumping up here. And it's kind of been up, down, up, down, up, down. So not exactly a real trend line that we're going to take from that, but just wanted to explain that there are kind of at the start of a month or at the end of the month, you'll see a little bit of a drop off in inventory. Now, what we did see, what was actually the lowest, it's surprising in week 27 that we're setting a record for a category, but we actually had the lowest of price reductions. So even though our median list price has come down ever so slightly, sometimes that can just be what homes actually get listed or not. But to see price reductions at its lowest is really still telling us that it is still a high activity market and that there is not a huge need to be reducing the price of your listing because it's not selling, or you're not getting the traction that you want, or you're not having the showings that you want, or that you're not getting the offers you want. So not all that's surprising to see it around here, around this 6-month mark. That's generally just sort of, again, a nice natural reset period for a lot of folks. So as we go into, again, July, we're going to hope to see those numbers kind of stagnate. I'd like to see our pricing. I actually kind of like that it came down a little bit off the plane, and we can kind of bank on a little bit of this more of a consistent growth that we've been looking for, that 4.4%, as opposed to these kind of much higher jumping numbers, 30% that we had talked about last week or the week before. So we're hoping to see that come down. Other than that, as far as boots on the ground stuff in the market right now, buyers are picky. Buyers are pretty picky at the moment. And what I've seen a lot is that I'll have a really nice buyer strategy session with them. We'll really get into their search. They'll see, if they have 50 listings that are in their portal, they may like 10 of them. Well, each week as we go by, it's like, well, I only like 8 of them. Well, I only like 6 of them. Well, I only really like 5 of them. I only like 3 of them. So what's happening? Again, as these prices have increased over these past couple of months, the inventory that was available to them before has now moved into the next price bracket. And so now the available listings that they thought, they're like, well, what is this? Well, all the listings that were at the price bracket below them have now entered into these, and these weren't ones they were looking at. So as these prices have increased, buyers have really been sticking to their guns about what they want, and as they should. I mean, there are categories you can bend, there's categories you shouldn't bend, but by and large, buyers are pretty much saying, hey, look, I'm still in to buy a house. I had my eyes set on some listings that I had seen before. I'm not really seeing as much of those now. And unfortunately, I can talk and have logical conversations with every one of them. I can make them understand these statistics. I can make them understand the nature of the market from, actively working with buyers and sellers. However, the buyer has to believe it kind of in their heart. They can believe it in their head, but they have to believe it in their heart. And what so many buyers are doing is they're holding out hope. They're holding out hope that something irrational is going to happen that's going to get them into a house that they want, that they saw 6 months ago. And I'm sorry to say, but as realtors, we have to decide who we're going to work with. I cannot represent 100 buyers simultaneously. I can't show that many physical homes, even with the assistance of a showing assistant at times, right? So we have to really preferentially choose who we're going to spend our time and energy on. And the buyers who are becoming increasingly picky and who are not representing themselves in the fact that the market is changing and kind of changing with that, as realtors, we have to make a hard decision to say, I'm not going to be as proactive about this client who is putting up their kind of their own internally developed roadblocks for what they're willing or not willing to do in this market. And they may need to retreat out of the market, figure out a different why for entering this market, and then re-enter the market when they really are ready to purchase, as opposed to just sort of like, well, if it makes sense. There's not a lot that makes sense at the moment if you're just going into it with that attitude. But here's a good story to leave you with. I had a client that we have a closing tomorrow. They had offered, we had got under contract, I think it was about 6 weeks ago. They had offered $30,000 over asking price. And we were really concerned about the appraisal. Is the home going to appraise? What's going on? Well, we basically ended up getting the appraisal. It came in right at value at the price that we had paid, $30,000 over asking price. And if we were to relist their home today, I'd probably list it for even higher than that. So that's the thing that you have to recognize, is that when you enter this market, literally by the time you're done the market, the pricing could be a little bit different. But let's not go into markets expecting and being fearful that prices are going to increase. The only reason you should be fearful of that, about the big changes here or there, is if you're going to be flipping a home and you're going to be holding this thing for maybe 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, and you have to quickly resell it. There's some differences there. But for the traditional homeowner who's going to be looking to purchase a home for the next 5, 7, 10, or forever home status, I'm really, again, not overly concerned with a lot of the kind of minor fluctuations in price that we've had, anything like that, because the tenureship of you staying in that home, the ability to refinance when we have a different interest rate picture, the ability for you to control that asset as well as ride the inflation wave, I think far outweighs any of the negative concerns that I would have with slight price increases or some interest rates and favorability or some terms that you'd have to get into that might not be as exacting as you'd want. So anyway, that's going to do it for us here this week. I'm really looking forward to starting the last 25 weeks of the year. I know it's a very odd way to phrase it, but we have 25 more weeks of this year before we can really kind of call it a wrap in December. So let's see what happens here. Again, interest rates, would love you to come down. New listings, would love you to go up. Closed, I'd love you to kind of settle in a little bit. And other than that, I think we're just along for the ride. So if you ever have any questions, or if you ever want to get any good resources on some of the things that I look at to kind of help coach myself, coach buyers, coach sellers as they're considering entering the market, reach out. You all know my cell phone number. You all see my email address. You get it from me if you get this anyway. So anyway, have a good day. I hope everyone had a wonderful 4th of July, and we'll see you next week.